Welcome to Keeper of Good Things. My name is Rachel. I'm the host of this channel. And Keeper of Good Things came to me a few months back where I was woken to it sort of ringing in my consciousness. And when that happens, I know I've got to pay attention. So I wrote it down, and when I was fully awake, I went looking to see what it meant, and it actually pointed me back to God. And I thought, well, that's pretty beautiful. And I left it there. And then recently I thought I might start a channel, and then I was thinking, what do I call it? And then I thought, what better thing to call it than Keeper of Good Things? So that's what the channel stands for. It also stands for what I believe in and my search and journey for the meaning of life, I suppose, faith and family and love. There's a few highlights of my life in the reel at the beginning. I'm 55. I've had the privilege of having a long-standing marriage, and I also had two beautiful children from the marriage, and they're adults now. But I think that it's a real privilege to be a woman and married, and I think there's a lot to be said about it. In fact, I think we don't celebrate it enough, and we are pushed to think we can have it all and be independent and all of that. But I think perhaps that's a little bit too extreme. I'm not sure. Anyway, my journey of self-discovery happened 5 years ago, and it was when the COVID pandemic was just about to hit. I was having a recurring nightmare, and I could see rivers of blood, and they were clogged, and there was it was sort of like corrupt. And I would wake up, and my arms and fingers and toes and extremities would be numb. And this went on for a while, and I got a bit concerned about it. And there was a running joke in the house that, if I was dying, things were good for Rachie. And that sadly was true, because I had an unhealthy fear of death. My mum had died when I was 12, and so I was petrified of dying early, and I was petrified of leaving my children motherless. That's gone now, and I feel it's because of this journey I've been on and the healing that I've had through God, and by the grace of God, I believe that's why I'm telling this story now. And so, interestingly, I've had a career in sales, and as a sales professional, you're an ambassador for change or an ambassador for good. And I was a very authentic person in my career, and I did very, very well. I worked in extremely competitive big companies like Google and News Limited and Yellow Pages, and trained people. And I was talking to my old boss. He rang me recently, and it was lovely. We hadn't talked for a very long time. He was just giving me some support from the sidelines, and I do get that from people. It's lovely. And I said to him, I won't say his name, but he'll know if he's watching who I'm referring to. And thanks again for that contact. I said, how funny is God? If he could choose any ambassador to speak freely about him, I'm the perfect person for that, because I've been doing it my whole life for companies, and I can't work in that industry anymore either. So, yeah, so maybe that's why I was brought into this space. I'm not sure, but anyway, I'm really proud to talk about my experiences, and I know that faith is a challenging subject. Belief is hard when you don't have tangible proof, and a lot of people have turned away from churches. A lot of them have lost their way, the churches, and so there are people searching for meaning and for more, and there is more to this world. So if this story helps somebody, then that's a great thing, and I'm quite happy to share my story. I'm not worried about what people think of me. I've sort of had a journey where that's pride and ego has been really taken through the ringer, if you like, as part of my journey of what I needed to fix as well. So, yeah. So anyway, I went to the doctor because I was concerned, as I said, about my health and this recurring pattern. But at the time, also the rollout was happening, and I had some concerns around that too. And I'd gone onto Therapeutic Goods Association website, and some of the data was concerning me. And I'd never done that before. I'd always gone to the doctor. As I said, I was a bit of a hypochondriac, taken every drug given to me. I'd never taken notice of anything, no ingredients of anything. I was really just whatever. But this time I wasn't. And so I went to the doctor, and I said to this lovely doctor, I'm either crazy or I'm going to die. And explained to him what was happening, had all my printouts of data, because I thought I'd better show him why I'm concerned. Anyway, the first thing he did was check everything. I had a lot of tests, and there was nothing wrong with me. The next thing he did is he said to me, "Rachel, you're not dying, and you're not crazy." He said, "I have a lot of people coming in like you are," and he said, if I didn't have to have it, I wouldn't, because I believe in our immunity, and I've seen a lot worse sickness in my job than what's going on. I don't quite know what's going on. And at the time, they were doing the daily press releases telling us who had died. And at the time, they were saying of COVID, and most of them were very old with comorbidities. But later on, they changed that to with COVID. And that data change makes a very big difference to the results of what was going on. But anyway, he reassured me, and I went home with 5 sleeping pills, which I never took, and the dreams and the numbness completely stopped. And I believe the things that I was seeing was the fact that we were unhealthy as a nation, as a globe, actually, and that internally there was a lot of corruption within ourselves as well, is what I think. It's not pinpointed on one particular thing, even though people still say this is the reason why. There's many reasons. And another thing that is a reason why people get sick is fear. And fear is a very powerful thing to make us ill. And interesting, the Bible says 365 times it has passages in there saying not to fear, which is kind of beautiful when you think about that's one for each day of the year, isn't it? So anyway, that was the start of my experiences. But then I started getting a lot more. I had recurring numbers and all sorts of things there. But I want to share a couple of really profound moments that really have changed me in many ways. So I was going to the marches, and I was vocal about the freedoms that were being taken away. I didn't think it was right that people couldn't see dying loved ones, weddings, churches, schools being closed. I just didn't sit right with me at all. And so I went to the marches, and I slept in my car. And one day I went to one, it was huge. There was over 1 million people there. It wasn't televised, never seen anything like it. And I was compelled to lie down on the grass, and I did that. And I looked up to the sky, and as I looked up, there was this incredibly huge formation of birds in a V. And I said to the man next to me, I sort of tapped him, I said, "Look up there." And he couldn't believe it either. It was quite incredible. But when I went into Canberra, I had the diggers flag at the back of my car, and I did feel a lot of compassion and sorrow, because I did feel that a lot of people have fought and died on this country, and as I said, I think that it was wrong on many levels. But this conversation is not really about COVID. It's just that it was the starting point for me. And anyway, I didn't have anyone to talk to very much, and I was vilified. I was spat at. I had all sorts of things, and I was so surprised because I'd never been someone to be awful to minority groups, and I found myself as a minority, and I felt so much anger towards me. It was shocking, really. I learned a lot in that lesson, but it wasn't nice. And so one day I was walking with the dog, and it was a very windy day. I had both the dogs, and there was rubbish flying everywhere, and it was a bit how I felt, turmoil inside. And I saw this rubbish, and I felt guilty because I was walking past a lot, and I couldn't pick it up because I had no rubbish bag, and I had the 2 dogs. And I cried out to God, and I said to God, "I am so sorry, God." And I felt really emotional. I felt this through my heart when I prayed. And I think there's a difference between speaking a prayer and feeling a prayer, because God can't hear you if you don't believe he can hear you. And so I said to God, "I'm really sorry that I haven't done my part. And if I had a rubbish bag, I would pick the rubbish up." And I kid you not, out of nowhere, this big black bin liner just fell onto my feet. It was incredible. And I laughed. It was brand new. I laughed and I said, "Okay, God, thank you. I'll go and pick up the rubbish," which I did. And I always walked with a bag from that day on as well, because there's always something to pick up. And so that was another profound moment for me. And then probably the most profound moment I've had is, so my life changed, and I moved away, and I started again. And as I said, I don't drink, so I don't really go out socialising like I used to. I'm not interested in going to Westfields shopping centres, which I used to love. Everything I kind of liked, I don't mind it, but it's not really for me. I want deep connections. I like working in the land with my property, which is amazing because I'm never into that. And I like walking my dog, and I speak to strangers. And some of those conversations I will highlight on this because I have a gift where people can give me their stories, and I'll share some confidentially. Obviously, I won't be talking about people's names, but they need to be told because sometimes they're beautiful. So anyway, I'm at a point about a year or maybe a bit longer, could have been 2 years actually. I was lying in bed and I had my pajamas on and I was so sad and I was crying and I was really in despair. And I said to God, I don't know why you've changed my life like this, and everything's changed and I'm so alone. I don't know what you want from me. Um, and it was like a sort of, I was on my knees kind of, but not really. And the next thing I hear this noise come into the room. It's massive noise. I can't even explain how loud and powerful it was. And it came right up to my ear, it was like a sound bowl actually at your ear, but like an alarm even. Like it was so powerful. And then I felt it go through my body, and it felt lovely, like a healing thing. And then I got three kisses on my shoulder, and I could feel the lip on my skin. And but I had pajamas on, and it didn't feel sexual. It was a kind of like a child being kissed by their father with love. And and then my rational brain went, hang on a sec, what's going on here? Firstly, you're not naked, and secondly, you're not with anybody. You're alone. And so then I got scared and it stopped. And I always regret that now. But um, I share it because it's such a beautiful experience that I had, and it makes me understand that I'm never alone. No one's ever alone, and there is more to this. And you just have to ask. You just have to ask. God wants the best for us all. And so that was an amazing experience. Now, the other thing for me was I was trying to work out where do I go? So I've been down the New Age, and I then came back full circle to the Bible. But I'll tell you a couple of weird things that happened about that. And so at the beginning of the journey, I went online and I ordered some angel cards and a Bible. And when the Bible was delivered, because they were delivered separately, there was a knock on the door and this young guy was there and he said, look, sorry to bother you, but I have a delivery. I think your parcel's empty. I don't know what you've ordered, but I'll stand here and let you open it because if it's empty, I need to send it back so they believe that you didn't get the delivery. And he said, what is it? And I said, it's a Bible. And then this young boy did believe in God, and we had to talk about that. It was lovely. Anyway, I opened it up, and it was empty. He was right. So he said, look, I'll send it back and you can get a replacement. I'll order it for you. So he did that. He was lovely. And then I got a confirmation saying, sorry that your Bible's damaged. And unfortunately, we've got it here, but unfortunately, it's out of stock. So I hadn't actually notified them that I'd received it again and it was damaged because this was a secondary thing. It was very unusual and it was out of stock. And I ended up ringing the owner of this big company. I found it through some technology. He was quite taken aback. And I explained how I found his number and explained what had gone on. And he ended up sending me a free one. He was lovely. And but it was interesting because when I rang up head office, she had just been to a tarot reading and they told her to get angel cards. So what happened then is I went from there to New Age, really. And I went down that path. And look, I'm not here to offend anyone, but I feel it's not right for me. And there is a lot of warnings around it, and you have to be very, very careful in what you open yourself up to. And the devil does roam around looking for people he can attack. And I'm not going to go into that today, maybe another conversation. But certainly there's more to that too. And I had some not very pleasant things happen to me as well. And so then I've gone back to the Bible, and I don't think I was ready for it at that stage. And I don't read it like a book. It comes to me in conversations, and then I find a passage. And so it's a different way of reading and interpreting. And I watch other people deciphering it because I think the Bible is being interpreted because it is a living word and it's not being written in English. So we can read something as a literal thing, but it's not actually literal sometimes. But what I do know is there's so many characters in that book, and you can relate to many of their stories. and there's a lot to be said about the messages in there. And I will end this with a lovely passage around love. It's one of my favourites before the end of this session. So yeah, that was sort of the highlights of what's happened to me in the last 5 years, in a spiritual level. And so I'm now speaking out to tell, as I said, to help people maybe on their journey. And as I said, I want to do some series around topics that people frown upon discussing, like, religion and politics and world events and things like that, history. People don't necessarily want you to talk about that because it causes people to, get a little bit cranky if they don't agree with your views. But I'm on a quest, and I thirst for knowledge, and I look at different ways to get it now as well. And so I see things that I don't think others see, and maybe sharing them opens up a little kernel seed of, oh, maybe there's more to this world than I really thought. And so I want to share those sort of things. And as I said, I don't know, I'm no expert. I'm learning all the time. I make mistakes. But hopefully there will be, kernels of truth in there that might inspire somebody else as well, which is the hope. And it's nice to document this. I do like to public speak. I did it a lot in my old job, and it's something I find I like to do. And I'm usually people like to listen to stories that I tell of situations. So things that I speak about will be from my own personal experience and nobody else's. And so I'm only going to come from my own authenticity, which I think is important. I mean, I'm very lucky that I've always felt quite comfortable to express myself, and a lot of people can't do that, and that's perfectly fine. We're all different. But I've never had a problem of speaking my truth, as people who know me would vouch, has got me in trouble sometimes. And I think the delivery can be off sometimes, but that's something I'm working through with this journey I'm on. And so I'm going to read this beautiful passage from Corinthians 13. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful passage, and I think there's a lot to be learnt there. And when I'm in a space where I know I'm not coming from God, I just read that passage and go, okay, what does love really mean? And that comes to play. So anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to doing more of these sessions. If there's anything you want me to cover, please DM me. If you don't like the content, just switch off. Probably no need to get attacking on the messages. If that happens, I probably will ignore it because I don't think it helps. Excuse me. And if you've got anything you want to add or positive note, please do. And on that note, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching, and lots of love. See ya.